I was with the Minnesota State Patrol for 33 and a half years. I retired in 2013 as a district lieutenant. Everybody knew me as Lieutenant Diane, so I extend that to you. I'm Lieutenant Dan from the Minnesota State Patrol, retired. So in between 2013 and up till July 2nd, I worked in private security. I actually worked for the Minnesota Vikings on their security team at their training facilities, both the old Winter Park and the new one. And pulled out of that. It was fun while it lasted, and now I'm doing this because I started with the Minnesota Safety Council in 2019. Got in about 4 classes, and then COVID hit. Needless to say, our in-person classes kind of went to pot. So we now are just getting going, and our classes are, we're getting many requests for it again, which is great. I love to come on and talk to people about driving because it is, in every essence of our word, part of our normal everyday life, whatever we're doing, whether we're driving to the store or you're delivering something to a customer down the road in your business vehicle. It is part of our society, it's part of our life, and it also can make a big impact positively or negatively when we're on the roadway. So we're just going to go over some good driving stuff, information today. Everybody here, part of what I did for the patrol was do instruction for our district, for the statewide, and for our training center. And one of the topics was emergency vehicle operations. I taught our guys how to drive. So as much like what we're doing today is going over good defensive driving stuff to keep us safe out on the roadway when we're in our business cars. Nice thing about it is it holds over to your personal driving also. So you get kind of two bangs for the buck here because it does everything that we're doing for the business here also relates to your own personal driving and everything. So we'll get right at it. Defensive driving overview. Every 5 seconds a vehicle crash occurs. Every 10 seconds an injury occurs, and every 12 seconds someone dies in a motor vehicle crash someplace in the United States. As of today, and this is kind of old information, as of today there have been 372 fatal crashes on our roadways. The same day last year there were 301. We finished the year with 394. Needless to say, we're going in the wrong direction here. That information is a little bit old. It was up through, I think, September when my boss put this information together. Those numbers have actually increased in just 1 month. Okay, motor vehicle crashes are the #1 cause of on and off the job intentional deaths and leading cause of injury in the United States still today. The injury and the number of deaths from planned homicide or suicide and unplanned motor vehicle deaths, injuries per 100,000 population is where that comes from. And this measure does include injuries from all causes of intents. Motor vehicle accidents. It is, again, the leading cause of workplace deaths. Overwhelmingly. Roughly 40% of workplace deaths occurred in transportation incidents. Other leading causes were falls, slips, trips, deaths from being struck by objects or equipment, and exposure to harmful chemicals. You can put that in your bank if you're ever asked about it. Now you know. One of the most dangerous things most people do today is to go out and drive. You folks drive on a daily basis, don't you? You go out and you're in your motor vehicle. You kind of know what I'm talking about. Ever since COVID kicked in, our traffic levels have been down, but our traffic accidents and our traffic fatalities have gone up. What is defensive driving? Defensive driving is driving to save lives, time, money, in spite of conditions around you and the actions of others. Defensive driving protects us from what is happening around us. Developing defensive driving habits means making safe and legal driving decisions, creating a safe, stress-free personal driving space in and around your vehicle, and driving to your destination safely without a ticket or a crash and without affecting other people's safety. Recognizing the risks of hazards, driving behaviors, and conditions. Which is kind of what that slide says. What is a preventable collision? A collision in which the driver failed to do everything reasonable to avoid it, in a nutshell, is a preventable collision. My old department, every time something got bent on a squad car, whether it be a backing accident or an accident out in the roadway, we had an accident review, and our crashes were divided into preventable or non-preventable. And a board sat down, looked at every crash, and decided whether or not it was preventable or non-preventable. Many of the crashes were preventable. The driver did something, or something happened that, had they done something else, it wouldn't have probably happened. Now, there are some non-preventable collisions out there. They happen a lot with us. Pursuit intervention, things like that. Out in your world, could be somebody blowing a red light when you were halfway through the intersection that you had no control over. Here's an example.
Yeah.
Okay, and just in case you missed it, I'll play that again. If we look right in this lane, you see somebody that's kind of pulling over there and, whoops, a little bit too much speed coming into it and maybe a little distraction, who knows? How could someone, do you think this could have been a preventable crash?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, absolutely it could. We don't know what the driver was doing at the time, but obviously the speed was up and following distance wasn't quite close. That's one thing that I'm going to really stress today, folks, is that can buy you something is your following distance when you're out in the roadway. We talk about safety, and we use the abbreviation SCC in some of our other classes. Scanning, looking out, seeing what's out there that's going to get you. Communicating by using our signals, our horn, whatever. Not waving, especially not with all 5 fingers. That's not a good method to communicate.
Sometimes.
And yeah, sometimes you'd like to.
Yes.
And then our cushion of safety, worrying about what's around our vehicle. We gotta focus on that. We gotta make a cushion of safety for ourselves. Really, when we're going down the road, the only area that we really have control over is what? The front. Yeah, exactly, what's in front. We can't control what the guy in the Buick or in the Kia over here are doing, can we? And we can't control what the guy that's riding our tailgate behind us, we can't control what he's doing either. But we can give ourselves time and distance in front of us. We have control over that for the most part at all times when we're going down the road, until somebody pulls in front of us right away, and then we got to make adjustments. But that's the area that we really can use to our advantage when we're going down the road in any driving situation, and to stay out of preventable collisions. Collision prevention formula: recognize a hazard, understand the defense, understand what you wanna do, and then act correctly in time. We talk about that following distance, that's where we pick up that time. That's where we pick up that time. Are you a safe driver? Recognize ahead. Here's how we can do it. Scan ahead, around and behind your vehicle. We gotta be aware of what's going on around our vehicle all times. How do we do that? We're looking out here, we're moving our head back and forth. We're looking in our rear view mirrors. We're using the equipment that's in our vehicles to help us with that scan. In urban areas, scan 1 or 2 blocks ahead. In rural areas or on expressways, you wanna be scanning to the next hill, to the next curve, the next overpass. If it's a nice long line, you wanna be scanning at least a quarter mile down the road, which is about 10 to 15 seconds if you're traveling at 60 miles an hour. Does everybody check your mirror every 3 to 5 seconds when you go down the road?
Yes.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. It's a habit that you gotta really do to incorporate and have it just become a habit. So checking mirrors every 3 to 5 seconds is a good thing. Always stay alert, focus on the driving task so you don't lose on your response time if something does happen in front of you. And use the what-if strategy to keep you alert and prepared to spot hazards or prevent a collision. What that means is as you're driving down the road, you're looking out and you're going, oh, okay, what if that car suddenly decides to cut over to the exit ramp, or that car decides to do this or that. You're thinking about things that are happening out in front of you before they happen and out ahead of you. That helps you recognize hazards. What's wrong with this picture?
Say, first of all, getting out of the vehicle, if someone's out there.
Yeah, you always want to stay in your vehicle, and we'll discuss that a little bit here too. Watch what happens here.
Oops.
Oops.
Mhm.
That's the danger of being out on the roadway and working on the side of the roadway. Those are the little hazards that we're gonna think about when we see them off in the distance in our scan. How many know about the move over law? Minnesota. What do we do in Minnesota when we see something like that on the edge of the road?
You have to get a lane over.
We get over lane over, right. And we're talking about multi-lanes, just like we see here. We're not talking about the 2 lanes out in the Toolies, Highway 55, or just 2 lanes or anything like that. There's not another lane to safely move over, is there? Now in this case, if you were on the inside there and you're going by and you can't get over, what do?
Slow down.
Yeah, we just slow down, don't we? We slow down to the point where we can react, give ourselves time in case something that's happening on that side suddenly becomes part of our lane of traffic. So obviously in this case, the truck was pulling too much speed. The driver was too close to the vehicle in front of him, didn't allow himself time to react to what was going on there, and we end up with another secondary collision. So whenever you see anything sitting on the side there, make sure that you're giving those folks room to live. How many, who do we have to pull over for? Who do we legally have to pull over for in Minnesota? And this generally is pretty much any place in the country that you go.
Emergency vehicles.
Emergency vehicles, yep, that includes fire, police, ambulance. Who else? Who else do we have to?
Tow truck drivers.
Construction.
Tow truck drivers, thank you. That is the latest addition to the overall law picture is tow truck drivers. Who else? One big group.
DOT.
DOT, right, DOT when they're out there. When there's flashing lights out there, those are the folks who normally have to pull over for it. Now, everybody in here has what's called common sense. I know it. Because you're out here, you're driving, you're employed. You have a ability to think on your
Unless
own.
that's a lost art.
When you see things on the side of the road, and a little bell goes off in the back of your head, you go, what's going on up there? Is it a good idea to, even if there isn't flashing lights, if you can do it safely, move over a lane? Sure it is, sure it is. Giving somebody else that's maybe working on a flat tire. How about a roadside domestic? That happens, where the occupants are outside having an argument about something, and sometimes they end up out in their lane. Those are just two general things that sometimes happen out there, and a lot of things cause cars to end up on the side of the roadway. So giving that room when you're going by, hey, it'll certainly keep you out of trouble, and it gives you time to react to something if something all of a sudden happens on the shoulder. So again, following distance, giving your time to react and see down the road what's going on is so important. Our law is called the Ted Foss Move Over Law. That's exactly the way it's written in the law. Do you know how it came about in Minnesota? It was about 2001 that it was actually enacted. The Ted Foss Move Over Law came into law after a trooper down in southeastern Minnesota on August 31st of 2000 was struck and killed while doing his job on the roadway. It stopped a vehicle from Illinois for a speed violation, and was standing outside getting the information from the driver outside the driver's door when a FedEx delivery truck, the driver had fallen asleep, drifted off onto the shoulder at 70 miles an hour and struck both the vehicles. The squad car ended up flying off into the ditch. The vehicle that the Illinois family was in was then struck. Where did I say the trooper was at? Standing outside the door. Yeah, didn't stand a chance. And everything ended up down in the ditch. Ted left a wife and 2 kids on that day. Fortunately, the family from Illinois got out of it almost unscathed. They had some bumps and bruises and stuff. Everybody was buckled up inside. The kids were in seats and everything, and had relatively no injury. That was the high point about that whole mess. So that's how it was after that the Move Over Law came into being and went through legislation. I think at the time we were only the 2nd or 3rd state in the United States that actually had a Move Over Law. After our law went on the books, virtually every state then came on and added laws also. So Minnesota kind of led the way in the Move Over Law. Understand the defense. Know what to do to prevent a traffic hazard from becoming a collision. Know the consequences of your driving choices. Know the basic defenses. Again, like I said, scan in all directions, slow down when it's necessary, and use a safe following distance. Always, always, always. I can't emphasize enough how important following distance is, especially when we're out traveling with a lot of other vehicles that are around us. Act correctly and in time. Choose the safest driving maneuver to prevent a collision. Remember, other drivers may act in time, but they may act incorrectly. You ever seen that happen? If you're going to be out on the road a lot, you're going to see it happen sooner or later. You will see that. You want to make sure that you're in a position where you can then react to what's happening and do it safely, and that you have time to be able to react. Is this the safest driving maneuver?
We're obviously going too slow, and I don't know what's in the front window that's not supposed to be there.
That was his fuzzy dice.
Look, there you go.
Those cable systems work. They work great. It's prevented a lot of accidents. One thing, the reason for the cable systems is prevent exactly from what happened here. There's a vehicle going into the other lane, getting hit from a vehicle from the other way. But, what caused this crash? What caused this crash? What was the big cause of it?
Speed following distance.
Following distance. Yeah, following distance. You've probably experienced it out there, where you look in your rearview mirror and goodness gracious, you can see the guy's feelings because he's so close to your back bumper. The gentleman in the car in front may be driving the speed limit. Maybe driving the speed limit. I'm not sure what the speed limit is here on this particular roadway. But one thing you gotta remember about speed in Minnesota is in the statute, it says, if you are over the speed limit, if you are driving over the speed limit, you forfeit your right of way. You forfeit your right of way. What does that mean? Well, in the regular driving, well, I'll tell you, maybe it doesn't mean a whole lot, but if you get into a collision situation or something like this, later on in a courtroom, it could make a difference. It could make a difference to you, it could make a difference to the folks that are involved, and it could make a difference to the business if you're driving a business vehicle. So, following distance, folks. Did I mention following distance earlier about being important? Conditions that are beyond our control, like weather, traffic, road, or traffic mix. Sometimes we don't have control over these things. Lighting conditions, especially about this time of year, in the spring and up this time of the year, where the sun is starting to set in any east-west roads. If you're going someplace in the morning, going to the east, what are you looking at? You're looking right into the sun, aren't you? If you're coming home in the evening, you're looking at the sun again because it's setting. It just, in our area, this time of year, the sun can really play havoc on our ability to drive on our east and west roadways. Sun glare, sunrise and dusk. Snow glare. We all know about snow glare, don't we? Diminished visibility because of weather, because of road design, things like that. Work zone lights. When you come into a work zone, flashing lights, especially at night, can be a hazard. Reflected light coming off of shiny objects, either whether it be a vehicle, the roadway, or something adjacent to the roadway.
US Bank Stadium.
US Bank Stadium, yeah. High beams from oncoming vehicles. Come on, give me a light for crying out loud. Our lights, because of the halogen stuff, are bright enough already, and if properly aimed, it shouldn't be a problem. But when the high beams are on, it becomes a problem, doesn't it? When you're coming at vehicles. And high beams from vehicles behind also. Be careful when you're following vehicles about what setting your lights are on. Here's some things that we can do to help us out as far as lighting conditions. Use a sun visor, wear sunglasses, keep the inside and outside of the windshield clean. I just cleaned mine the other day. Going to a class last week, driving into the sun, I realized that I should have cleaned my windshield about 2 weeks earlier. Because you get that kind of mist or that fog or whatever that builds up on it, and it makes it really hard to see when you're driving into the sun. Increase following distance to 3 seconds plus. How many have heard of the old 3-second rule? Okay, still applies today, and it works pretty much at any speed. Now remember one thing about the 3-second rule? Nice day, dry pavement.
Yeah.
That's what we're referring to. At 3 seconds, if somebody jams on the brakes in front of you at a speed, you're 3 seconds behind them, you're probably going to be able to stop or have time to maneuver around them. And stopping, you're not going to stop very far behind that bumper though. It's minimum distance. Whenever we get into situations where visibility becomes a problem, like we want to stretch that 3 seconds to 4 or 5 seconds, whatever it is that we feel safe at. Make sure that your vehicle, come back here. For vehicles behind with high beams on, move your head, adjust your rear view mirror if needed. Most of our mirrors in new vehicles have automatic adjustments and stuff for bright things, which is kind of nice. How many people have a newer vehicle, like 5 years old or newer? How do you like them? How do you like some of the new gadgets? Safety items, things like that.
Backup camera.
Backup cameras. How many have got a backup camera? Oh, they're great, especially in parking lots at Menards, because you can't see anybody. All the gizmos, all the safety stuff that they're putting on vehicles are great. It helps us to become or be a better driver out there. But don't sacrifice something that you're already doing in your scan for technology. Use it as part of your scan. So when you're driving along, how many have got that little thing on the rear view mirror? When somebody comes into your blind spot, you get the little indicator, and maybe even a beep beep when you decide to move over, and it tells you. That's a great tool. It gets your attention. But don't let it replace, yep, somebody's there. Take a look. Incorporate it in with all of your scan. Incorporate it and put it in with your normal scan. It'll help you out in a lot of situations. Don't flash your high beams back if you're less than 500 feet from an oncoming vehicle. Why don't we want to do that?
Because you blind the other person.
Yeah, you blind the other driver. And you know what? Especially if you're on a 2-lane and it's 10:30 to 12:30 to 2:30 at night. How good a shape is that driver in? You suddenly now have a blind drunk driver coming at you. That's not a good situation. Okay. And then slow down. Slow down. Speed, following distance are two important things whenever we're out there driving. Too little light. Turn on low beam lights. Increase following distance to the seconds plus and then slow down. Kind of common sense stuff here. Weather. Weather conditions often change quickly. You may have been in a situation in which it's sunny, and then, I'm reading off of the thing, by the way, just in case somebody. You may have been in a situation in which it's sunny, and then suddenly it starts to rain or snow. The best defense is to slow down immediately. Weather hazards reduce visibility, vehicle traction, and steering control. No kidding. Driving too fast for weather conditions, turning too fast, or stopping suddenly on slippery roads may cause your vehicle to skid. Even with the anti-skid stuff that we have on our vehicles now, and our anti-lock brakes and stuff, you can still put yourself into a skidding situation very quickly when the weather turns bad on us. Best defense to avoid skidding is always to slow down when the weather is bad. Simple as that. That's your best defense, folks. Still is today. We're dealing with physics when we're out driving, and physics is pretty basic, pretty simple. And when you break the laws of physics, there's no turning back to it. They're very, very unforgiving. And the motor vehicles, hey, that's an exercise in physics when we're going down the roadway, and we have to work within the parameters that are given to us. And weather is a big parameter that affects our driving, of course. Rain, fog, snow, dust, sleet. We, in Minnesota, hey, we experience all of that, don't we? We get it all. We get it all. And fog, foggy conditions. These are all shots from Minnesota cameras on our interstate system around the metro area here. Here's another shot of that same crash. This was just foggy conditions. Foggy conditions, and what else may have been a contributing factor to this particular crash?
Was the fog outside or between the ears?
I'm sorry?
Was the fog outside or between the ears?
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Little bit of both. We got foggy conditions, so we're limiting our visibility. What else is reducing our visibility in this crash?
The hill.
Bridge.
There you go. Yep, exactly. The roadway. We had a curve in there, and now we're coming up over the curve. Remember, we're going back, how far do we wanna scan? How far do we wanna scan down the road? Until we can see that first hillside or whatever, or a quarter mile, 10 to 15 seconds, right? In this case, boy, it probably would have been iffy. Obviously, somebody wasn't scanning, right? The only thing you can do here, folks, you gotta slow down. You gotta buy yourself time and distance to react to things that are going on in front of you.
Leave yourself a way out.
Give yourself a way out, exactly. Give yourself a way out. And think about, if I'm a driver driving out, you gotta think about what might be happening over that next hill. Bridges.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, you don't wanna be that guy.
Wow.
And just in case you missed it.
Hope you had clean underwear on.
I can just about guarantee you probably didn't after he
Yeah,
landed.
not afterward.
I know I wouldn't have.
No.
You're just missing a
I'm
Duke
tired of
of
that.
Hazzard
That's
theme
not the
song.
way to fly, I'll tell you that much. Oh, dude, there we go. We'll watch that real quick, and watch the bridge. Why are bridge decks a hazard in Minnesota in this time of year and ongoing into the winter season?
The first thing that
They
cools
freeze.
top to bottom.
Yeah, it's the first thing that's gonna start freezing up, right? Yep. The air moving underneath when it's cold out, when you get moisture on those bridges, it's going to start freezing sooner than the ground around it because ground is an insulator. When the bridges are exposed like that to our elements and stuff, they're gonna ice up quicker. Be very, very careful as we go into the winter season about bridges and things. You don't wanna slam on your brakes or anything. What's one thing in the metro area that we run into a lot of that we usually don't run into out in the rural areas?
Black ice.
Black ice, exactly, black ice. It happens, it can happen very, very quickly also. It can form very, very quickly in the mornings when we have the heavier traffic. What causes black ice? What's one big contributor? Exhaust, yeah, exhaust from our vehicles. Be careful on the bridge decks. Be careful on the bridge decks. Exit and entrance ramps. When we're accelerating and decelerating, Mom Nature is going to dictate your speed.
They say that looks awful slippery, just from the headlights.
Just from the headlights, yeah. This particular crash, what was probably a causative factor here? Speed, exactly. Speed. Now, if we watch that camera for a while and no cars come through there, we don't have any crashes, do we? That's it, everything's copacetic. As soon as we add a vehicle that's going a little bit too fast, and then we add another vehicle, yeah, that's what we end up with. Speed is so important with weather and stuff. When we have something on the roadway that normally isn't there, you have to adjust to it. Whether it be snow, ice, sleet, black ice, or whatever, we have to adjust our speed to it. Defensive driving techniques. Decide whether it is absolutely necessary to drive or continue to drive. A lot of people make that simple mistake of going out and driving when they really don't have to. Now, in your profession, when you're with your work and stuff, depending on what you're delivering, you may not have a choice as to making a trip someplace. So then we really got to look at, okay, how are we going to plan on getting there in a safe manner? Slow down. Even the legal speed limit is too fast in some conditions. All our speed limits are up there. Maximum speed limit are up there. That's during the nice times, you know, when the roadway is dry and things. When stuff gets on the road, that speed limit sign doesn't really mean anything. You have to drive according to conditions. It's pretty simple. It's physics. Use the windshield wipers and windshield wiper fluid. I've used more gallons of windshield wiper fluid since I moved down here in 2013 than I did in all the years living outstate Minnesota. Use a lot of it down here. Why? More traffic, right? More stuff getting kicked up. So make sure that you got that windshield wipers are in good order. You don't want to find out that they're not working right when you really need them. make sure you got windshield wiper. We gotta see what's going down the road, right? We gotta see when we're traveling down the road. Use your headlights whenever the windshield wipers are on. Is that a law in Minnesota? Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is. Good hint. If your windshield wipers are on, your headlights and taillights, both should be on also. Your headlights and taillights should both be on at the same time. What causes your windshield wipers to come on? Rain, snow, ice, things that are causing visibility problems, right? When we turn our lights on a motor vehicle, we become that much more detectable. We're very visual animals, mammals, whatever you want to call yourself. We depend when the driving, we depend on our vision more than any of our other senses. We use our other senses when we're driving, but vision is the number one priority when we're going down the road. So we got to see where we're going, right? And we also have to be visible to other people, and other people should be visible to you. Well, we don't, not everybody does that though, do they?
No.
I've stopped a number of people over the years. Why don't you have your headlights on? I don't know how to turn them on. I just bought my vehicle last week. I haven't looked at the owner's manual yet. Nobody bothered to tell them how to turn on the lights. Newer vehicles, it can be a little bit disconcerting when you get in there with all the different controls. If you're coming out of an older vehicle, when you go into a newer vehicle, it's a good idea to sit down with that owner's manual and figure out how to turn everything on and off and where that is. Using the defoggers to get rid of fog, things on your windshield, using low beam headlights to see and be seen even in foggy conditions. This is especially important at night in foggy conditions or snowy conditions. What happens if you turn on your headlights in fog or snow at night?
The light reflects.
Yeah, you get a lot of light reflection back, don't you? Yep, you get, and you can't see anything. So make sure that you're using your low beams when you get into those kind of situations. Road conditions, hazards that are out there. Springtime, these pop up all over the place, don't they? Roads narrow, just the design of the roads can narrow down, sometimes going from 3, 2 to 1 lane. Potholes, they grow just like our flowers do in the springtime, don't they? So that's a surface problem. No road shoulder or gravel shoulder, construction areas, you're gonna run into that all the time. But you also may run into it where there's been a problem or erosion or something that's happened along a roadway. So be careful and heed those signs that say no shoulder here. You don't want to drop off onto a shoulder like that. What can that cause? What can that cause if all of a sudden your wheels drop off and they drop down 2 inches?
Roll.
Yeah, loss of control, right? Loss of control. Most newer vehicles have a really neat anti-skid system built in. It's built in and works along with your ABS system for your braking system that helps control that vehicle. But if your vehicle gets beyond about 26 degrees, that back end swings around about 26 degrees, even with that system, it's gonna keep going. 26 degrees is about that mark where physics is going to take over. The center of gravity of your vehicle now is going to exceed the speed of the front end of your car, and you're going to get into a spin situation. So if we do that, if that happens to us, what's the best course of action? All of a sudden, boom, my front tires drop off. What do we want to do? What do we want to do? Slow down? Yeah. How are we going to slow down though? Are we gonna dynamite the brakes?
No.
No.
Go with the gas pedal.
No, get off the gas pedal. Let your vehicle start to settle down on its own, slowing down. Light braking if you're gonna do some braking. And then look down the road. Look down the road. Okay, where do I wanna end up in this situation? I don't wanna end up on the ditch, and I certainly don't wanna fire back over into somebody else's lane. So I wanna stay in this get my wheels here, control and drive and look to where I wanna go, and get my vehicle down to the speed. Maybe I even wanna get off the road, let traffic go by, so I can clean my shorts.
Yeah.
And then get back onto the roadway, under your own power and under your own abilities. So be careful in those situations when you don't get any jerky movements in there or dynamite the brakes right away. That's gonna exacerbate the problem. Okay, some other things that are built in, winding, curvy roads. I was out going through the Beartooth Pass about a month ago, talk about windy, curvy roads, and uphill and downhill and limited visibility. That's about the max out there when you're coming down the mountain in the areas. We don't have a lot of mountains in Minnesota, but we got a lot of windy, curvy roads, so you gotta be aware of what may be around that next corner. Hilly, steep roads, road construction, work zones, they're as common as the flowers popping up in the spring, aren't they? As soon as spring comes around, what happens? The construction zones grow out of the ground too, along with multiple road cones, barrels, and everything else. So road construction, work zones, be careful of those. Be careful of those. Those require some extra caution. How fast is too fast? Like weather and road conditions can change quickly, and the road surface shape and shoulder can affect its condition. But when it boils down to it, speed will get you through or get you into a problem, just as you saw there. Adjust your speed, adjust your following distance to make up for changes in the roadway. Obviously, what happened in this particular crash? Let's see that once more. We're watching the big truck. Doesn't look like he's going all that fast, does it? He does accelerate a little bit here though. Gotta beat that light. It's still green. It's still green. Gotta get through that green light. I gotta accelerate. Oh geez. I kind of forgot what I was carrying. Little top heavy. Every curve has its critical speed. Every curve has its critical speed. When your vehicle is a little bit higher, your center of gravity is a little bit higher, that critical speed then goes down. You gotta slow down then to be safe. In this case, obviously, that didn't happen.
Is it true that the speed limit on curves is set for good weather and trucks?
Basically, yes. Good weather and trucks. See the 25-mile-per-hour one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, everybody is out here and went, geez, I can take this thing. It's a nice day out. I went through there at 45 miles an hour and I didn't have any problem. I didn't even hear my tires skidding. You might be able to get through okay, depending on the critical speed of that particular roadway. But the posting for those basically are looking at this type of vehicle safely getting around in good weather. It's 25. That's what it's kind of based on and looked at as our larger vehicles. Yeah. For smaller vehicles and stuff, which you're driving every day, your own personal vehicles and stuff, you can probably go around the fire. Being close to those ramp speeds though will definitely get you through there in a safe manner then. What kind of vehicles do you all drive for the business here? Are
All
that
different.
company vehicles, I imagine?
Yeah.
Okay. Trucks, cars, vans, all sort of different things. Are they all set up the same way as far as your controls? If you get into one van and then get into a car later on, are you looking at the same picture? No, you're not. You're not. That's something else you gotta take into consideration when you are driving out there. If you're driving multiple vehicles, is what am I working with today as far as my controls? Am I comfortable with the controls? Do I know where they're all at? And that can even reflect back to your day-to-day family life. How many people own more than one vehicle? Yeah, just about everybody's got more than one vehicle. I've got a Dodge pickup, 2017, and I've got my wife's vehicle that she lets me drive every other Thursday of the leap year. Yep. She's the one that's got the expensive vehicle. She's got all the bells, whistles, and gongs, all the warnings and everything like that. It's great. She's got more dents. Okay, maybe I put one of them in there. But, vehicle controls can be different, even in your personal vehicles. So you gotta be aware of that when you get in, so that in your driving task, if you're driving down the road, you gotta be aware that, maybe something isn't in the same spot of the vehicle that I'm used to. So take a little bit of time before you head out in here to just familiarize yourself with the instruments and what you're gonna be working with in that particular vehicle. Speed continues to be the largest contributing factor in fatal crashes, currently at a shocking 116 speed-related deaths. This is a 36% increase from the time last year, and it is a 100% increase from this time in 2019. When you're traveling at 100 miles per hour, you're traveling at 146 feet per second. How far is that? It's about 48 yards a second. That's almost half a football field, isn't it? Your time and distance to react drop significantly the faster you go. Our, let's see, I'm trying to think of what the number of, I just saw a figure as to number of 100 mile per hour plus stops my old department has made this year. Significantly higher. Part of the problem is there's a little less traffic out there, kind of from the COVID thing, you know, where everybody's getting off the road. And, we got wide open roadways and things. There's nobody to worry about. People have the false security that they can then go faster because there's less traffic. You gotta remember, you gotta think about yourself too, and what might happen. What else is out there besides traffic that could suddenly influence your driving?
Wildlife.
Well, thank you for the wildlife. The good old deer coming out, and it happens all over the state. Where is the highest number of deer hit in the state of Minnesota?
In the Twin Cities.
In the Twin Cities metro area. That's where we kill more deer than any place else outstate. Because there's a lot of them, they're in protected zones, they don't get hunted a lot, and they like to wander. Are we getting into the period of time now where we really gotta watch out for them?
Yep.
Yeah, how many ride motorcycles here? Do you ride a lot at night, especially during this time of year? Yeah, maybe not. Are you more aware of this time of year and what might walk out in front of you? Yeah, on your personal side note, be careful, especially if you're on two wheels, and I ride two wheels. I try to avoid being at night. A little personal recollection. One night I'm sitting in Detroit Lakes at my desk at 10:30 at night, doing my Lieutenant Dan stuff for administration, and I get a phone call from my wife. And my wife says, Dan, we just got a call from Doug, who is my youngest son. He was in Iraq, spent time in Iraq, in a battle zone for 16 months, came back, has gone through law enforcement training. He is currently a police officer up in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, and he is also still with the National Guard. I think he's got 17 years in now. Anyway, this was kind of an interim in the summer between when him and his fiance were out on his Honda, what we refer to as the crotch rockets, the racing type bike. I taught him pretty well. He was a safe driver, always wore a helmet, always wore leathers, and also made his fiance do the same thing. Well, that phone call was to inform me that they had just hit a deer south of Detroit Lakes and were down in the ground with EMS people on scene. When they hit the deer, that caused the passenger, now my son's wife, to launch up over the top of him, because that's what happens in a crash like that. And she landed partly on her helmet. You can see the two indents in the back of the helmet where the helmet hit the ground. Thank goodness she was wearing a helmet that night. because that's what saved her life. She spent the next almost month in the hospital in Fargo recovering from induced medical coma because of brain swelling and things like that. Today, she leads a normal life, working on animals in a vet hospital, which is great. They got 2 great kids, but it could have been so different back then had they not had the proper equipment on, and also the response from EMS. You don't often go to your own kids' crashes. I did that night, and that really gets your attention. Okay, let's continue on here. Speed is important. Oh, what was his speed when he hit the gear? He had just got into second gear and he figured he was doing about 35 miles per hour when he actually hit the gear. Not all that fast. In our own backyard, the number of citations for speed of 100 miles per hour or more troopers have given since September 16th. Now I remember, it was on this, 913. Since this went up in September, when she put this into her PowerPoint, that number has grown by at least 10 to today. One thing about if you're way over the speed limit, there's a certain speed limit where if you're ticketed for that speed and found guilty of it in court, you get some walking time added to the fine. Your license gets suspended for a while to make you either think or go through a class about why it's important not to be speeding at that speed. High speeds, bigger problems, great potential for loss of control, increased stopping distance, of course, less time for you to be able to drive or see and avoid a crash situation, and it's crash severity, leading to more severe injuries and death. Our cars are very well manufactured, aren't they? Even better than what they were 20 years ago or so. The design of every vehicle incorporates safety features to help us to live through a crash situation because they happen. They happen. It's part of reality. The problem is, our cars can only protect us up to a certain point as far as speed and as far as the forces. The higher the speed we go out there, if we're involved in a collision, the greater the physical forces. The higher the speed, the greater the physical forces. What does that result in? Okay, if I get hit from the front, if I'm going slow enough, my car is going to crush. The energy is going to be transferred through the framework and around me. But if my speed gets up too high, the energy, the car can't absorb all that energy, and all of a sudden, instead of your steering wheel staying here, it comes back to here because everything starts moving back on you during a crash sequence. So you got to be careful. When you get into a situation, into a crash situation, your speed is going to dictate how you come out of that crash. We can exceed the vehicle's ability to protect us. Speed and safety, tunnel vision. Driving at very high speeds can result in tunnel vision and decreased depth perception for the driver. At lower speeds, you got a wider field of vision, and you are more likely to see things that are happening. You can kind of see the illustration here. We go from 25 miles per hour and what we see to up to 70 miles per hour and what we hear. And folks, I spent 33 years driving around the state of Minnesota in a squad car. Sometimes at some pretty fast speeds because of an emergency situation. I can tell you for a fact this happens. This happens. When we taught our troopers about emergency vehicle driving, this was a big thing that we really pushed, was tunnel vision. Tunnel vision. The faster you're going, the more your peripheral vision goes down, and the less you're seeing out here because of time and distance, the speed that you're traveling. So the higher the speed goes, keep that in mind. How do we fight that, or how do we battle that when we're going down the road at a higher speed in an emergency vehicle? Gotta start moving your head. Gotta start doing more of this to encompass our field of vision within that smaller circumference of where our vision is actually at. Biggest way to take care of that? Keep your speed down. Keep your speed down. It is as simple as that. Distracted driving. A study released in April 2006 found that almost 80% of crashes and 65% of near crashes involved some form of driver inattention within 3 seconds of the event. The 100-car naturalistic driving study conducted by the Virginia Tech Transportation Institute and NHTSA broke new ground on the second 2019. I'm not sure what that means, but do you think distracted driving is a problem out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You betcha it is. You betcha it is.
How come your politicians didn't put some teeth in the law?
It would be nice to have teeth in the law and then more people out there to actually enforce it, but hey, that's a whole nother discussion. What is
And I think
distracted driving?
any vehicle that is capable of hands-free communication, and somebody gets caught not using it, the fine should at minimum double.
You would hope, it would be a nice start. It would be a nice start. It would. Do you think most people that are distracted going down the road get caught at what they're doing?
No.
No, usually not. But when crashes occur, that's what we're seeing a lot of.
Yep.
And you see the weirdest things. If you folks are out on the road, right? You're driving down the road. Have you seen some weird stuff out there behind the wheel going down the road? Hey, if you haven't, you will. When you're doing your scans, you're gonna pick it up. The guy's eating spaghetti. The guy's on the phone smoking. He doesn't even have his hands on the wheel, for crying out loud. Seen that. I knew a gentleman from Austin, Minnesota that worked in Winona. Worked Monday through Thursday. Drove to Winona to Austin every day. And he bragged about the fact that he had the whole Tribune read by the time he got to Winona every
I
night.
wouldn't even brag about reading it.
Yeah, good thing. And the only saving grace was he was doing it at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
That was the only saving grace. If you're out at on the I-90 between Austin and Winona in the morning, there's not a whole lot out there. Except deer. There's deer and things out there. And there could be other things out there too that you want to be aware of. There's 3 types of distractions. Visual, actually taking your eyes off the road, not paying attention, looking at something else other than what's down the road. Manual, hands off the wheel, actually taking your control points off of your main control point. Cognitive, mind off of the task at hand. Cell phone. They got so bad that Minnesota made a law that you can't use your cell phone anymore, can you? You can't have it up here talking. You gotta use a hands-free system. Does everybody adhere to that law? You've seen it. You've seen it out there. You've seen the person in front of you, out back you, or whatever.
Yeah, they're all on them.
They still use them. If I see somebody that's on the phone in front of me, you know what I do? I get away from them. I slow down. They may not see what's gonna happen in front of them, and I don't wanna be part of their accident, because they're not paying
I
attention.
go like this and put it on their lap.
Cell phones are a definite problem. One time you can use your cell phone in this manner. 911, yes. If you are looking at an emergency situation where you have to get a hold of 911 ASAP, then you can use that phone. What might be one situation where you'd want to use that?
Can you still use it to call people in going over 100 miles an hour?
We get calls all the time. My wife works in the Radio Communications Center in Roseville, Minnesota. They dispatch every state patrol car and DOT truck from roughly Highway 55 all the way to Baudette. All our folks that are in squad cars out there, DOT, are talking to somebody in Roseville, Minnesota on the radio. Didn't always used to be that way. The radios used to be spread out at the district offices more, but because of technology and stuff, it allowed them to put everything down here, which is a savings to us when we pay our taxes on road taxes and things like that, or for registration and things like that. So there was some saving for each one of us here too, but people who use a cell phone while driving are 4 to 5 times more likely to be in an injury-causing traffic crash. Yeah, that's very, very true. While driving, good. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. 4 to 5 seconds going down 60 miles an hour. You're traveling how fast per second? Anybody? 88 feet per second. At 70 miles per hour, you're up to around 100 feet per second, just a little bit over that. 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds, how far have you traveled?
100 yards.
You've traveled a lot of feet, haven't you? And do things change very quickly in congested traffic sometimes? You're out there, you know how quickly it can change. 4 to 5 seconds, even 3 seconds, can make a big difference on whether or not you get home that night, isn't it? 81% of Americans text regularly. Over 6 billion texts are sent every day. Over 180 billion texts are sent out every month. 27 trillion texts are sent every year. 97% of American adults text weekly. America is responsible for approximately 45% of the world's text volume. Well, we're leading in something. Americans text twice as much as they call on average. Very true. I look at my own self and I probably use the text a lot more than I do actually talking to somebody. When drivers text and go down the road, they are 23 times more likely to crash. 23 times more likely. 4 to 5 seconds. The amount of time eyes are taken off the road when sending a text message. That is the average amount of time in a text message. The amount of time it takes to change the radio station. The amount of time it takes to adjust your temperature, or the amount of time it takes to eat your McDonald's French fries. And it doesn't make any difference what kind of French fries, McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever. That's kind of the same. About 45 seconds. 4 to 5 seconds, folks. That's a long time. The amount of time it takes traveling 55 miles per hour to travel the length of a football field. And if you are distracted, add in a blindfold because you're not seeing what's going to bite you out in front of you.
Whoop. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What caused that crash? Guess what the driver was doing on his phone, probably. It's on the phone. On the phone. This is the kind of vehicle that you never want to see in your driving trips coming to where you're at.
Yep.
You just want to. Flying is fun. You can test for that. Helicopters, airplanes, been in them for years. You don't want to end up a passenger in one of these. They're great. They save a lot of lives, but it's best to stay out of them and stay out of the situations that they show up in. Never touch the brakes in that case. Be careful at intersections. You can see why. Be careful at intersections. When the light turns green, and you're sitting there, you're the first car, what's the first thing you should do?
Look left and right.
Count for 1 second.
I've seen the light. Look both ways, just like at a stop sign. Every one of us, when we took driver's ed, what did they teach us? When you come up to a stop sign, look both ways before you proceed. How many times did they tell you to look? twice at least, minimum of twice at least. Why do we do that? Why do we teach looking twice? Any idea?
Change.
Because things change, exactly. Things change. If there's a car coming at you and you look, okay, there's a car coming, we look over here, everything's clear over here, we look back over here, ooh, holy crap. The car is, your brain says, the car's a lot closer than what I thought it was gonna be. You think maybe their speed might be up, then all of a sudden now our time to get across that intersection may not be as much. So that's why we wanna look twice, is because our ability to look at something and then think about it, even unconsciously, think about it and recognize a potential hazard is there. But you gotta do the two-time thing, because you need something to compare it to. So always, stop signs or intersections, folks. Don't do what this guy did, was jump the light as soon as it turned green. We're gonna take a look at that again. As soon as the light turned green, he is moving. Guess what the van was doing?
That was awful cold.
Yeah, cutting it awful close.
That was,
In fact, he probably blew the red light.
oh, real.
Most likely went through the red light. When lights change, depending on the situation, and I'm thinking that this is an urban thing, so there's probably between the time that your green light illuminates and the red light, there's about a 1 to 2 second interval there to try and cut down on that. The possibility of these things happening.
169 in Elk River.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
Yep. Look both ways, every time. How many have been out?
Especially if you can't see through that vehicle on your left side.
Yeah, what was another problem there that driver had?
That truck was right
Vision obstruction, right? Never even saw the guy coming.
I think that
Let's
vehicle
look at that
saw,
once more.
saw it coming, because he started pulling forward and then he stopped.
Yeah,
I think he saw that van.
there you go. Now,
Well,
if
he
you were
pulls
the
forward,
driver
then
that
he
pulled out
stops.
there, should maybe that guy have given you a hint
Yeah.
that something was coming? Yeah. Fixation, thinking about where we wanna go, hey, things, you gotta think about the here and now, especially in intersections. When you're coming in these situations, you gotta focus on what's happening right now. You can't be thinking down the line in this case. If you would've been paying attention and all of a sudden this guy is stopping or slowing down, if you were paying attention, that might have clued him up that, oh, geez, if it stopped.
If the red light's not going, you should probably shouldn't go either.
Yeah. I sometimes let other people go out. Okay, you're the sacrificial lamb. Somebody else is coming, I'll be a really good witness for you that when you get hit. That happened in Eden Prairie, on the south side of our shopping center. The intersection has been completely redone now. And one of the problems was vision, an unevenness in the lanes and stuff. Saw a lot of crashes at one particular intersection. And I just happened to be in the left turn lane one day and witnessed that happening. Most of the crashes were left turn collisions, people making a left turn and got hit by somebody else, and that's exactly what happened that morning. Fortunately, when the collision happened, it was front end to front end. All that energy is going through the front end of the cars and didn't get back into the area, so people didn't get hurt. They were very fortunate in that fact. But yeah, watch for it. And those are the little things that you'll pick up if you're paying attention to what's going on. Multitasking, a brain drain. I hear a lot of people say, I'm great at multitasking. I can do a lot. You know what? We as humans aren't really good at multitasking. We really aren't. We can do things, more than one thing at one time, but we're spreading our brain out. We're dividing our attention in things, and then we lessen, for whatever task we're doing, we're lessening our attention and our abilities on those. The brain engages in a constant process to deal with the information it receives. Select the information the brain will attend to, processing the information, encoding a stage that creates memory, and then storing the information. Does it really quick though, doesn't it? Kind of like a computer. We're even better than a computer. Unfortunately, when we're driving though, multitasking
Oh, hello.
can be a bad thing. Paying attention to what's going on up in front of you, using that scan, looking down the roadway and paying attention, especially in this situation. Is there something that maybe should have told that driver that there was a possibility the traffic was gonna
Big lighted sign.
I mean, what else could you do here? I don't know, that's pretty obvious. I'm not sure what that driver was doing, but I don't think he was paying attention to what he was supposed to be doing. And it can happen very quickly, folks. It does. That's what leads to these crashes every day. Got to pay attention, got to pay attention. Numbers. 40% of lost work hours are due to traffic-related injuries. On-the-job crash costs employers more than $24,000, more than 125 grand. If it includes an injury, a fatality could cost you up over $1 million. Let's say you were in a crash. What happens if your loved one, a neighbor, friend, colleague, family member was in a horrific crash on a Thursday at 7 p.m. and they were put into the ICU? Are you going to miss work? Most likely. For how long? Who knows? Employers feel the direct effect even when it isn't their employees. Fatalities can cost up to $1 million nowadays. What if you're injured, suffer brain trauma, and need somebody to take care of you for the next 40 years? If it is that severe of a crash, your insurance is going to run out at one time, probably in about 6 months. Then, who pays for your care? The state is going to. Or, in the case of a litigation, maybe somebody else. And that is where the economic loss of $452 million comes into play. As employers and taxpayers, we just don't think about traffic in this manner sometimes. The losses that are caused on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week, year-to-year basis, to all of us, every traffic crash will affect us in some way. And it just depends on the degree of the crashes and how often they happen as to the number of dollars that are going to be involved. Road conditions, defensive driving. Let's get into that for just a little bit. Let's see, we've been sitting now for, when did we start? 8 o'clock or so? Let's get up and stand up and take about a 5-minute breather, and then we'll go 6 things. And carry those out with you. You're gonna have it made. Slow down. Slow down to the conditions that you're facing. Did I mention increased following distance is your best friend out there in any driving condition? Drive at the recommended speed or slower. Sometimes traffic might dictate as to what the speed limit is, but you know what? You're in control of your vehicle. You can control that speed. Let them go around you. Maintain control all the time. Always be in a position of maintaining control of your vehicle. Obey work zone workers' instructions when you're in work zones. If you have flagmen stuff out there, keep your eyes moving. Stay alert at all times. Always, always, always be watching what's going on. Road conditions and following distance. Yeah, that collision happened in, actually in Hastings. The reason that car ended up underneath that one was it got rear-ended by the white truck. It got hit hard enough that it forced a small car underneath the one in front. So the actual bad guy was in the truck, wasn't paying attention to traffic, and that was the result. Oops. back up one here. Road conditions, even when they are fine. Can sometimes bite you. If you're not paying attention.
Man, that bush art was great.
Hey, you killed
My
my
words.
words.
Remember when I talked about higher profile vehicles, SUVs and stuff, having a higher rollover potential? You just saw a perfect example there. Now, needless to say, some people's folks' days have just been screwed up. Now, if you're in your delivery van and you're back there, do you think your day's gonna get screwed up a little too? Yep. Work zone hazards. Other vehicles, workers, equipment, materials moving in and out, altered road conditions, drop off, short turn slope, everything that's involved in, bottom line. Be careful when you're in construction zones. Even if you're in a construction zone, you think, they must almost be done with this area. If it's still marked as a construction zone, folks, you can still have construction folks moving around in those vehicles, so pay particular attention to those areas. Why do we have barrels in front of certain things out in our construction zones and along our roadways? To prevent people from dying. To prevent people from dying. The barrels absorb the impact forces, and then they deflect them away, hopefully away. Can people still die in these? Yeah, they can, if the speed is too high. If the speed is too high, and those forces get in with us. So be careful, those barrels really do a good job too. I have been to crashes involving those, and I have been to the crashes where there were no barrels there. Trust me, the outcomes were totally different. Watch for those orange signs. Get in the correct lanes. Observe the speed limit. Prepare to merge when you need to merge. Zipper move. Everybody doesn't know what that is? You know, when you get into that situation, help out by participating. Not everybody knows what a zipper move is, doesn't always know what to do. Watch for flaggers and workers, be prepared to stop, stay in control, remain calm with aggressive drivers. If you get an aggressive driver, best advice, get away from them. Get away from them. Back off. If you have to take a ramp and he has to go down the road, let him go down the road. Get to the top, take a breath, continue on. Give other drivers plenty of space, even when that means that they'll get above you. Hey, maybe they got something that they think is more important than what you're doing out there. Your job out there is an important job. Make sure that you get to where you're going and somebody else doesn't dictate it. You get someplace else. Backing. Backing, our number one thing on the patrol for replacing automobile parts was backing. Even after we added the backup camera, it's still the number one. It helped a little bit, it cut down on it, but it's still number one. Plan ahead to avoid backing wherever possible. Back in when you arrive rather than when you leave. If you ever pulled into a restaurant and you saw squad cars, most of the time, which way are they pointing when they're parked? They pointed out, weren't they? The guys backed in. Reason for that? We could get called away from a meal at any time, and when something happened that called you away from a meal for an emergency, the anxiety goes up a little bit, stress level goes up a little bit, and that affects your thinking. So when you get out to the car and you pull out, you don't have to worry about the backing. And you can do that in any place, the shopping center, wherever. Avoid backing whenever you can. Avoid backing whenever you can. Because our cars afford a limited visibility because of just the nature of the build, right? The A pillars, B pillars, C pillars and stuff, especially behind us, and backing causes some vision problems. So, a few little things there to kind of give you some information. If possible, use a helper to assist in avoiding contacts with roofs, docks, walls, other vehicles, pedestrians, and other obstructions, especially if you driving larger vehicles, it's always nice to have that, if you have another person, to actually help you, direct you to get in all the spots. Check behind you, keep your head on a swivel. If you got that great little camera down there, use it in conjunction with your head moving. Back in or not, back in, not out. We're legal, where parking spaces are not angled, fleet safety experts agree it is safest to back into or pull through a parking space so that your vehicle is facing out when it's time to exit. Get the full picture, have your mirrors properly adjusted, so you got the best view behind you. Get it straight, once you back in before exiting the vehicle, turn your wheels straight so that you don't forget when you come out and you start out, you're not turning all of a sudden. Oh geez, somebody might have pulled in next to you a lot closer than what was there before you went in. Embrace the walk. Pull through spaces are more common in the outer areas of the parking lot. When possible and practical, take advantage of the use of parking in a pull through spot and walk the extra distance. What did I do this morning? Where was I parked?
You parked on the opposite end of the building.
I'm almost on the opposite end. Plenty of room to park. I park so I can get my stuff in and out. And I enjoy walking by the blue spots because I don't need them. I don't need them. Back in, not out. Approach slowly. When pulling through in a parking space, of course, you want to do it slowly. Make sure that somebody else isn't coming in to that spot if you're in a parking lot. Always exit with caution. Always exit with caution. How many people have been on a commercial flight? Been on an airplane, commercial flight? How fast do they track you away from the loading gate?
Pretty damn slow.
I got a connecting flight, let's move this, let's get this moving. Yeah, they back up slow, don't they? Why do they back up slow? If you hit something with that airplane when you're backing out, what's gonna happen? That little tug is gonna reverse and it's gonna pull the airplane back. You're all gonna get off the airplane and have to wait for another airplane because that airplane just got taken out of service until it's okay to fly. Structural damage, even little bumps and things can cause bad things in aircraft. Hey, why don't we all be like pilots and stuff when we're in our vehicles? And back up slowly like that aircraft. It gives you time to observe, to think, and to react to things that are going on around your vehicle. Your mirrors. When's the best time to adjust your mirrors? Before you go someplace, right? Before you start moving, adjust your mirrors. You can make little adjustments as you're going down the road with our nice electrical mirrors and stuff, if you have them, going down the road. If you don't have them and it's a little bit out of whack, make sure you got enough time to get to where you want to go and pull over and make that little adjustment. You know, it's bad enough that you run into somebody. Why does it have to be a state patrol car that I run into when I'm making my left turn? Yeah, maybe use some mirrors might have helped them out a little bit, being aware of what was behind them even before they got into the intersection. And, oh geez, here's my left turn, I'm gonna make the turn here. Oh, I'm in the wrong lane maybe. What option could that driver have done?
Go around the block.
Go around the block, sure, go around the block. Oh geez, I'm really pressed for time. How about when we start off our trips, we make sure we got plenty of time so incidents like this don't occur. I got plenty of time, I can go around the block.
You're gonna run that one back?
You're
gonna run that one back?
You want me to run that one back? Okay, I can do that. Unfortunately, turned in the wrong lane, and it started to try, or was moving over to try and get into the left lane, one of the two. Signaling, very important. Make sure we signal whenever we do anything. Is your vehicle ready to go? Do you have to inspect your vehicle before you go out on the road with it? You have to look it over?
Yep.
Yeah, vehicles, equipment and stuff, when we're driving it, it's our responsibility. So make sure that before you go, you don't want to end up in a breakdown. Make sure that you got the equipment, make sure that all your equipment is working properly, that your fluids are up where they're supposed to be, air pressure, tires. I can't stress tire safety enough. What's the legal limit for tread depth in Minnesota?
330 seconds.
230 seconds. What is the smart tread depth that you should never be below? 430 seconds. If you're down to 430 seconds or less, you should be taking out the Star Tribune, pulling out the ads and looking for those tire sales. Tread depth is so important on our roadways, especially in Minnesota with our roads, the way they change. Why do we have tread on tires?
Traction.
What's its function?
Traction.
It helps with traction, but what's its main function? Tread on a tire, what's its main function?
Water wicking.
There you go, water wicking, getting the water out from under the tires. If you get a layer of water underneath the tires when you're going down the road, what's it called?
Hydroplaning.
Hydroplaning. How many have been in a hydroplane situation? Was that the longest few seconds of your life ever until you got control of your vehicle again? When you hydroplane, you lose control of your vehicle completely. It's gonna go wherever it wants to go, and that's usually in a straight line. So be careful of that. Make sure you got good tread. Make sure you're looking at all your equipment to make sure that it's working properly and that it's gonna be in user friendly mode when you actually need it. Your wipers, if they're streaking, get them replaced. Know where you're going. Be familiar with your vehicle, your manual, your owner's manual is a big help there. That's funny, it disappears. Emergency kits, good thing for Minnesota especially. Jumper cables, cell phone charger, tow rope, bungee cord, flashlight stuff, sleeping bag, emergency bars and things. We still get people get stranded out in Minnesota during the wintertime, during snowstorms. And you can get stuck out there for a lengthy period of time. So make sure you've got those things before you go. Is your vehicle road ready? Great maneuver to miss. Unfortunately, and here again, if you're driving an SUV, be aware of this. The higher the center of gravity of the vehicle with SUVs and things, your center of gravity, you're gonna have a rebound effect when you put in steering. And in this case, what they did was oversteered to correct. Missed the vehicle on the initial, but the rebound got them spinning in the wrong direction, lost the control, and it resulted in the crash. Tough situation there. Don't know how visible they were to actually being there. It looks like there was a lot of reflection during the day. Traffic condition, here again, this is where you want to be able to look down the road. Your speed has to be adjusted. Make sure that you're driving according to the driving conditions.
The car was broke down in that deal in that picture, though. They should have had his flashers on too.
Yeah.
Should have had its flashers, yeah.
I think he did have.
It did have his flashers
It
on.
actually
I didn't
did
see it
have,
on the
yeah.
front.
Even the flashers can get washed out in the bright sunlight though, can't they? Yeah, and who knows how long that was actually sitting there. My guess is probably not a long time.
Right.
If you do have a fender bender, what are you gonna do? What if, despite your best efforts to drive safely, you are involved in a crash? Well, the most important things to remember, follow these steps. Stay calm. Getting upset, it's not gonna help the problem. How do we stay calm after a crash? Our anxiety is gonna go up, our adrenaline's gonna pump up. It's a reflex action for humans. It happens when we get into those situations. Good way to calm yourself down. It's so simple. Breathe. Breathe. Think about your breathing. Calm yourself down. Breathe in 5 seconds. Blow it out 5 seconds. breathe in 5 seconds, blow it out 5 seconds. We have a natural ability of calming ourselves down simply by breathing. Simply by breathing. It's used in many, many different techniques in all sorts of life. It's a good way to calm yourself down in situations. Move out of the roadway if you can. You don't have to leave your vehicles where they are. We are able, through many different means, including cameras, being able to figure it out. Find out if anybody's hurt. Call 911. Check to make sure we got ambulance response, fire response. In some circumstances, police may tell you to simply exchange information with the other driver, but let law enforcement make that decision, not the other driver, especially if they're the one you think, he's the one that hit me. If witnesses won't stop, try and get their name and contact information from them, let them go down the road so that investigating officers can go talk to them about it later on. Don't talk about the crash with anybody at the scene. Don't assume responsibility. You may think that, oh my God, I just did something wrong. You may have contributed something to it, but you may not be the main causative factor to it. Something else may be involved in there that you're not aware of. So don't admit to anything or talk about the crash there. Wait for law enforcement to come and then talk to them. The key is to stay safe. If you don't feel safe, stay in your vehicle while you're waiting. As long as you're out of harm's way, if the other driver tries to leave, don't try and stop them. Get their description of the vehicle, get the license plate. That's really important. Get the license plate, and then pass it on to the investigating officers. Why do we want to stay in our vehicles if we get involved in a crash?
Be there. That's a crazy place to be.
If we've crashed,
Well,
somebody else might crash too, and we might be in the way. If you're involved in a crash, folks, stay inside your vehicle in situations like this. This is downtown, this is in the cities downtown.
So how would that work as far as, if you get into an accident like that, and then all of a sudden someone else hits you? So your vehicle's not damaged, but then the other vehicle damages your vehicle. So what would be the...
Now it's a 2-car crash.
Oh, okay.
We've got a single car crash, now we got a 2-car crash. It could end up to be more crashes, depending on number of vehicles. It's all gonna probably be handled as one big incident. The investigating officer is gonna handle it as one big incident, get all the information from all the drivers, hopefully, so that each one, you get the information you need for your insurance company, for repairing later on. And then your insurance companies and everybody will try and sort out what actually happened. Things like this come in handy too, video. In this particular case, if you didn't feel safe being there, the 2 people were out of here, where might a safe place be to go?
On the other side of the guardrail.
The concrete.
Here's where I'd be standing, behind something like that is really immovable. I'd be standing right up next to that booger, because if somebody's gonna hit that, they're probably not gonna get to me. Guardrails, cars can go right over the top of them, can't you? Remember the bridge?
Yeah.
Went right over the top of the guardrail. If you got enough speed, you can get over them. How many remember down near Shakopee, driver that went off the road was found almost a week later in the boonies. Came up Highway 13, was gonna exit going north on 169. Way too fast to try and make that exit. Actually hit the barrier, became airborne, went over the westbound lanes and into the trees. That's why they didn't find him. It was a fatal crash. That's why they didn't find him for many days later, because he was completely hidden in the trees. Stay in your vehicle though if you're involved in a crash. Bad things can happen. If you've ended up under a crash in a situation, other people can also end up in the same spot. I've experienced that because I had to be out there. My vehicle, in the 33 years, I had my vehicle struck 6 times at accident scenes. Twice I was in the vehicle, 4 times I was out of the vehicle on the accident scene. So Best place to be is stay in your vehicle and buckled up, too, that way, if you do get hit. Okay, what do the lines mean? Pretty simple, no passing zone, we can't pass over the solid line. Double, can't pass there, not a good thing. Some people get confused with, solid white and dotted, white lines. Dotted white lines, you can go over. Solid white lines are lane markers, unless it's an emergency situation or you really gotta get over, the vehicle blocking your lane or whatever, then it's okay to go over those lines. You're not gonna, there's not the hazard of, oncoming vehicles that you have in the yellow. Dangers of loose objects in your vehicles. Make sure that you got things battened down. Loose objects, coffee cups, your cell phone, they start moving around in the car, what can they become?
Distraction.
A distraction, yeah. If you're in a crash situation, what could they become? Projectiles, flying objects. Now your phone hitting you in the back of the head, that might do some damage. Your 12-pound bowling ball, it's gonna turn into a cannonball in a crash, isn't it? You wanna make sure that the biggest stuff too is in its right spot and then it's restrained. You don't want things moving around becoming a distraction or a projection, including people. What is our number one safety device inside our vehicles? Seatbelts, 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 seatbelts. I can't preach it enough, folks. Seatbelts, you gotta have them on in your vehicle. Get into a regular routine. Get into it so it's so routine that you don't even realize you're putting it on. Seatbelt is your first line of defense. Your airbags, the construction of the car and everything is secondary to that seatbelt. If you're not in the driver's seat during a crash sequence because the car has moved out from under you, your airbag isn't gonna help you much, is it? Make sure you're wearing seatbelts properly. Make sure you're wearing them properly. One crash I had, husband was laying down, taking a nap, had worked all night, was in the passenger seat, decided he was gonna rest. Put the seat all the way back. He's gonna sleep while his wife drove on this trip. They came up to an intersection, got rear-ended by a semi. You think there's a little bit more energy with a large vehicle? But not, the seatbelt didn't do any good. He was at such a recline where the seatbelt posed no restraint. He literally came right out the back window. Why? Because the car moved out from under him. The car moved out from under him. He impacted the front of the truck after he went out the back window. Seatbelts, wearing them properly is very, very important, so make sure you do that. Zipper merge, we talked just a little about it. You get up to those, use them. They do get traffic through. Everybody does the right thing when they come into a zipper move, right?
No.
No, they don't. No, they don't. You go out and be part of the group that is doing it right. You know, the ones that I've watched, actually taken time to watch, people generally start to get the gist of it. And generally in Minnesota, they're not bad. I've been in other areas of the United States where zipper moves was a complete surprise to people. And amazing they even tried to start them there. Not being clean. Take turns, merge here. And you gotta merge in the right spot too, to make it all work right. If you're following properly, if you're following the vehicle in front of you properly, you are going to just automatically afford people room to move over. And in the zipper move, that's exactly what you want to happen. Otherwise, this is where we end up with long lines. The danger here is we start getting secondary crashes back here where the traffic is slowing down somewhat. So zipper mergers, they're good. They're a good thing out there. Buckle up, like we said. All 50 states have mandatory child passenger restraints too. Make sure that your loved ones are buckled into the proper seating. Kids in Minnesota under the age of 12 have to be in a booster type seat so that they're in position for that seatbelt to work properly to restrain them. Keep them in the back seat too. Our airbag systems are designed for adult bodies. That's why we want our kids in the back. Occupant protection safety list, things to do. Make sure your adults or an older child are buckled up using both lap and shoulder belts. Secure your infants, keep front seat backs upright, as I just explained. Rear end collisions can bite you. Proper adjustment of the head restraint, that's protecting your neck and back in a rear end collision from damage to your neck.
So I just confess that I text and drive. If I get a text, I'll look at my phone. It's definitely texting.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Snapchat. I do Snapchat and drive sometimes.
Is that like making Snapchats or watching them?
Making them.
Texting is like my main form of communication.
Honestly.
And B, well, no, I guess no, it's really just A.
I've only never done it at stoplights. I've always been really good about it.
The passenger has a pretty important role driving now, where they're like, oh, red light, red light.
If someone that you like texts you, you can't just like let it sit there without just knowing what they said.
Because what if something exciting's happening or something happened?
Like every time I do it, I think about, I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I just keep doing it.
So I'd like to, when I introduce you to a friend of mine.
My name is JC.
Hi, Alexis.
Hi, Dash. Justin, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I just really quickly want to have a chat, tell you what happened to me. When I was 21 years old, driving home from my college graduation ceremony, driver on his phone was so distracted. He turned left into the intersection at a red light. Another car, an 18-wheeler, swerved to miss him and hit my family's car. And the resulting collision actually killed both of my parents. I spent 2 months in the hospital fighting for my own life, and then 2 more months in a rehab hospital, learning how to walk again, learning how to speak again, learning how to dress myself and how to feed myself. I live with a partially paralyzed body. I didn't have my daddy to walk me down the aisle when I got married.
Having sort of like met JC, because you look at JC and sort of give those same reasons.
Oh.
Usually I use my phone to change a song on. I try to use it as little as possible, but
I'm not gonna look at my phone ever again.
Honestly, if I have been sitting at a red light, and I'll like glance down to see if my mom's texting me, but the people's lives that are impacted from something that is so stupid.
I can assure you on my drive home right now, I'm not going to use my phone and drive, and I'm not going to do it when I go to work tomorrow and the next day after that until, it becomes a habit, and that just doesn't happen at all.
I know this is hard. I'm sorry. It's hard for me too, but this is real. You have the power to really actually make a difference and do something about it.
Thank you.
Whenever there's a traffic crash on the highway in Minnesota, there's a ripple effect. It goes far beyond what most people realize. Sometimes a little dose of reality helps people understand just how their driving, simple things, can affect others. You, me, Every time we go out on the roadway, we could affect somebody else's life, their well-being, their jobs, our own life, our own well-being, and our own jobs. Folks, when you go out on the roadway and get behind that wheel, donate 100% of your skill. You all have driving skills. You walked in with them today. Use those skills at 100%. Pay attention to what you're doing. Watch your speed. Give yourself room to react, to slow down, to steer, and get to where you need to go, whether it be for your business or for your personal reasons. Thanks for being here today. I wish you all safe driving. God bless. Good luck with the business. Good luck with whatever you're doing outside your business. Drive safe. Maybe we'll see you next year.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks.